Welcome. I'm so excited to have you as my first guest. And obviously, I had to have you. You have not only had one of the most beautiful personal growth journeys I've ever seen, but also I've been able to witness it for a few years at this point, and it's just amazing to see how you grow on that journey. So I think that the viewers will be able to learn a lot from this. I would love to ask you first, what came first? Was it the personal growth or was it your professional success? Where do you think this initial hunger came from to do basically what other people wouldn't consider like an average profession or career path?
I think it's always been about like skills and I guess like design for me. So I started as a graphic designer in an agency, and my husband and I ended up starting our own service-based business where we were sort of graphic designers for people. We did that for a couple of years, and then I had my first son Leo, and we realized how unsustainable the business model was. And like I was working until like 3 a.m. at night, and I think this sounds familiar to you as well. I think when we first get into like a service-based business where we're trading time for money, it's very much like it can be a difficult juggle when you add kids into the mix, that's for sure. So when I was pregnant with my second baby, Elijah, I started looking for a different way. And that's when I started selling digital products on Etsy. And that just sort of gradually built up. And from there, yeah, I guess I just really developed a passion for being able to stay home with the kids and be able to do something that I really love doing as well.
And so when you and Glenn, your husband, decided we kind of want to go our own way, what was the main motivation for that? So you guys said we actually want to do our own agency.
That's a great question. Like, we've always wanted to work together. We went to university together. We had our first job together. And then after a while working at the agency, I just think we really wanted to have, I guess, creative control over what we were doing. So Glenn left first, and I was sort of working for a while while he got our first clients, and he went around and door knocked on all of the doors and got our first clients, which was amazing. Then I was finally able to jump over and join him.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So it was more that there was a creative growth gap, if I understand that right.
I think so, yeah. Like when you work for someone else, obviously you do have to listen to the person that you work for, which in a lot of ways it can be great. But when you're creative as well, you can sort of disagree on some things. So it can be, I guess it's a really amazing selling point for working for yourself as someone who's creative and as a designer to be able to, I guess, like have that, I guess, monopoly over your design and everything.
I think that's so interesting that you say this right now because I never thought of it that way. But I have to say, a huge desire for me also to get out of 9 to 5 was also the creative restriction for sure. Right. So that's such a great point for you to bring up because I feel like a lot of us feel restricted in that. And so the first step out was the business that you had together. Fast forward to today. So what exactly is your niche and how did you eventually find what's currently your niche?
It's like been such a windy road. Like I've done so many things along the way, and it's like it's so funny how one thing just builds on the next. So I started out selling Etsy banners on Etsy, and then I branched into all different niches on Etsy with different stores. So I did like business niche and invitations and clip art and photography and started all these different stores. And then what happened is in 2020, we had COVID, and my biggest store, which was a wedding industry store, like completely lost all of its revenue overnight. And we pivoted into a very, very business heavy focused store. And that was the point for me where I was sort of like, I kind of want to search for other pillars of income. So I'm not fully reliant on this one stream of income. So that's when I sort of started looking at teaching and course creation and coaching. And that is a big part of what I do today. So I am a digital product coach. I teach all things design and Etsy, and I have a couple of beautiful memberships where I do that.
I absolutely love your memberships. For those who are listening who don't know them, Template Creator Society is very much around starting your first printable products and templates. So a little bit on the easier side to design. I would say like very, very beginner friendly. And Jessa also has templatized all of the niches that she has, or all of the niche stores that she has in specific trainings, right? So if you feel drawn to create clip art, you have a step-by-step course to do that. And if you feel drawn to create business templates, you have the step-by-step plan to do that. And in Passive Income Society, it's basically the supercharged version of that. It's so rich that I can't even break down all of it that is in there. And I think what's the beautiful thing about your growth journey for me to witness is that it's such a confirmation of you can't shortcut and jump into your ultimate niche. And I think, I don't know where life will still carry you. I feel right now, please correct me if I'm wrong, you feel very home in this place, but I can already see you growing other places too. But I think what I see from the richness of your memberships is that nobody who has not had Etsy stores and actually sold digital products for 8 years would ever be able to come up with all the resources and tools and templates you have in there, because you know the struggle so well that you can uh, create what's needed, right? And with that, shortcut everyone else's journey. So I think that that's a huge point. You have to kind of work your way up to even find your final niche. Would you say that?
I think it's always changing as well. And I mean, I learned that off you. You're obviously my mentor. You're the one who taught me how to basically build a membership. And I think that the biggest thing that you've taught me is, I guess, that ability to always be working on what you're doing. And then you feed that back into the membership. So it's kind of like you're basically just sort of doing the show and tell as you go along, just sort of showcasing, hey, I'm doing this over here. This might be easier if you do it this way. So it's a really cool journey, and it's always evolving.
Yeah, and it's almost like a vehicle trade up, right? So you master selling the product, and then you're able to help others to get the first steps. I think that's beautiful. My next question would be around the breakthrough moment when you were thinking, okay, this is really going to work. Like I'll be able to live in this very unconventional way potentially forever. What do you remember if there was an exact moment where you were like, I think I made it?
I do. I remember it really, really clearly because I was so excited. So at the point in time when we were in our agency, we were charging, I think, $500 for a full website, and it would take like weeks and weeks of work. They were massive. And then I remember the moment that I'd done all this design weeks ago on Etsy, and I was selling these banners, and I made $70 in 1 week. And I was like, I didn't even do anything for these banners this week, and they've just sold in the background, and I can build this as big as I want. So for me, that $70 really was like this ticket of freedom, I think.
I see a lot of members in your community posting when they have their first sale, right? So it's like obviously like a huge moment where they kind of break this limit or this false narrative around this can't work for me. And so you see that that's a huge lift, but it's still different from this point where you're like, I think this is going to work. So, and if you think about $70 a week, some would say this is by far not enough to sustain my living. So what in that moment made you realize that the how big of an opportunity it is and really believe in it?
I think it's with digital products, especially on Etsy. Basically, whatever you do, it compounds. So the more products that you create, the more products you get on the marketplace, the more basically revenue you can create from it. So when I was like $70, what do I need to make the amount that I'm making to make a website? It's like 5 times that. So I just need to 5 times the number of products that I have in my store. So it was the moment that I saw this. The only thing standing in between actually getting a wage from this was work, basically getting the products up.
Mm. So you were like, okay, I finally cracked the code on what I need to be doing, and I can just do that over and over and over again. So it's only the path is clear now. I just have to walk it. Is that right?
It is. And like when my first designs were terrible, like I'm so happy that I can help people avoid all the mistakes that I made in the beginning. But as you go along as well, it gets easier and easier and easier, and you get better, and you become a stronger designer, and you become faster as well. So yeah.
Do you think that your design skills from the agency were directly transferable to what you were doing on Etsy with digital products, or was there still like a distinct learning curve?
I think there was a very big learning curve. Every niche is so different. Like even when it comes to invitations, like obviously I had a background in corporate design and logo design, but I find like invitation design totally different ballpark. So I think probably the advantage that I have was knowing the software and all of that. But you still need to practice even as a designer. Like a qualification doesn't mean a lot. It really is getting that volume of products and doing that volume of design that makes you skilled in that area. So
I see a lot in your memberships. I see absolute beginners very quickly creating really, really beautiful designs. Do you think, in some sense, it's even an advantage if you're not kind of restricted because you primed, because you think like there are all these rules that you have to follow? Or do you say, no, no, it definitely, there are some evergreen, like golden rules everybody needs to follow?
There are some hard and fast rules, and I mean, I drill these into my students as well. Like, you never ever space a script font out. That is a no no. But I think when you come in and you have like a, I guess, base creativity, that's really all you need to learn all the design skills. It's really a matter of like looking at quite a lot of design every single day and building it into who you are. Like, when I go to sleep, I lie down and I think about design. That's what I think about to get myself to sleep. I'm thinking about layouts. I'm thinking about type. I think about what I want to design next and all of that. So yeah, I think you definitely don't need to be a designer at all.
Was the obsession for design there, or did it grow with you growing as a designer?
I think I've always sort of had it. I've always loved art. I designed my first website when I was 8, actually. And it had like these
Wow.
beautiful sparkly stars on it. And my dad, he worked at Ford, which is a car place. And I'm like, Dad, look, their website's terrible. You need to take this beautiful sparkly star website to them, pitch it because it's much better. Don't think he ever
Oh,
did, but that was my first design job.
I love that. That's so beautiful. I think you also have like this real desire for making things aesthetically pleasing. That's definitely something I think that is very unique to you. Um, so my next question would be, if you were, that I think that ties in perfectly with that. How did your growth in business, right? So as you grew in a business, force you also to grow as a person, and not only in a way of as a designer, but really as a person.
I think I've toughened up a lot. Like, I used to be a very, very shy person. Like, I think I had, like, when I was in primary school, I was called the frightened rabbit by my teacher. And I was very shy, very introverted, didn't want to talk to anyone. And I think, like, growing my business, it's given me, I guess, strength and confidence when it comes to presenting things, because I talk to people now and I present and I teach like thousands of people. So I think that that is probably the biggest gift that my business has given me in terms of skills.
And is there anything where you say that growth changed something about you that you'd possibly wanted to keep, or where you like, I want to be mindful that as I keep growing, I'm not losing connection with that part of myself?
For me, probably the thing that I care deeply about is like that ability to be able to create daily. Like, when I do feel like things go out of alignment, when I'm sort of doing too much admin or too many emails, or I'm sort of cut off from creation. So I think if I lost that, that would be a big loss to me. But I think I'm very grateful for being able to have a business where I get to do that daily.
What would you recommend to everybody who is maybe a little bit like you, an artist in their soul, and they use business as their vehicle to be able to express their creativity and have that space? What would you recommend to anyone who's in that place and say, actually, I just want to create, but need to find a way to make that viable and build my business in a way that it allows me to support that?
I think you need to look for an opportunity that you feel comfortable with, and you just need to take small steps. I think a lot of people sort of really highlight these grand gestures, but for me, it's always been these tiny little steps that I've taken that have built something up gradually. So I think if you are someone who's creative and you may not feel like the strongest speaker, or you may not feel like you have all the business skills, but you want to have a business that's built around creation, then find something that really lends itself to that. For example, I chose digital products. It's something that if I didn't want to speak to anyone, if I want to be in my quiet creative space, I can just be there creating digital products. And that's why it works so well for me. But everyone's different as well.
So slowly building and then also tearing things down maybe that don't work for you anymore, or just being very mindful with how you build things.
I'm someone who really struggles to tear things down. Like, I tend to be like a ball and I attract all this stuff, but I do sort of reach a point where I do have to kind of audit where things are at. And I've done that multiple times throughout business. And sometimes you just sort of outgrow parts. Yeah, I do think that everything has a season in your business. And I think that you kind of will reach a point where some things aren't serving you anymore. So you need to revisit them. And I think that's okay as well.
That's a very interesting thought. I just want to quickly ask you about that. What were the main seasons in your business so far, and what was kind of always the initiation of that phase, or what do you associate with that phase? And when did you know it's time for a new phase? Like, I've outgrown that.
Well, the first season will be the agency. So working, trading the time basically for a job and working directly for people. That didn't work when we were really struggling. Like we were really struggling to like chase invoices. Like people wouldn't pay us for months. We're working long hours, and with the baby, it just became unsustainable. So that's when I started searching there and found Etsy. Etsy would be probably the next season. I was happy there for such a long time until obviously the pandemic kind of rocked the world and our income was shaken a little bit. And that made me, I guess, focused on security moving forward because I guess our way of life with our family, we're both home, we're with our kids, and I would never want that to be threatened. So I guess security kind of was the thing that got me searching again for the next level. And I think the season I'm in at the moment is teaching. So we'll see where that
Hmm.
goes.
Beautiful. In that sense, also the crisis that you had was the motivator to go into the next season and have a growth phase again. So instead of be threatened by it, you were like, okay, I need to outgrow it. I need to find a way to be bigger than this threat, if that makes sense. Was that kind of how you conceptualized it, or were you like, okay, I just need to pivot, I guess?
I'm a slow pivoter. So I start searching first and I'll like sort of feel everything out. And then I'll kind of trapeze across. Like I'll put one arm out, wait till it's safe, and then I'll put the other one. So yeah, slow pivoter.
But you still have Etsy stores, right? So how many do you have at the moment?
I've got 16 still active, which is amazing. Lots of different niches, lots of them still running at a really, really amazing level. And I'm still can't help myself with building new ones. So
So, now that you have like this huge vehicle with 8,600 students and you could automate everything and you could work like so much less, why do you say, I don't want to let go of that? Like, what is still motivating you to entertain those shops and always you just add like a chunk journal shop, I guess? So,
yeah.
what drives you to, and you were on the weekend working on it and sent me the most gorgeous designs. So I was like, I find that so fascinating. You still have so much motivation to keep putting yourself in that beginner spot again and work it up again, like you recently did with the clip art store, right? So it feels like you want to challenge yourself to show again and again that that you can build it. Is it that, or is it purely you just enjoyed that outlet and you just want to make it happen?
I think, yeah, at the moment, I have a great love of teaching and I have obviously a great love of creating. Teaching for me, I always need to back it up with evidence and
Hmm.
show people that I'm like actually doing it. So for me, I don't feel right about teaching something unless I'm like in there in the weeds, like being like, this is how this works. This is how this works. I can save people time here. Don't do this. So for me, that's a big part of what's important to me with the membership. I like being able to sort of I guess, transfer that knowledge as I'm doing it myself. But yeah, I still love doing Etsy stores. I love creating things. I love the challenge of being able to, it's almost like a video game with the product count and the sales that come in and what works, what doesn't. It's really fun.
It's also such a smart way of growing without outgrowing the people that you're currently serving, right? Because yet then you feel that immediate beginner pain again and you don't risk getting disconnected from the initial struggle.
Yeah, it is hard when you start. I remember how hard it was. It took me 6 weeks to even get my first sale, and I fluffed around and I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember how hard it felt. And it's like, I mean, you go along and you learn and you learn. There's always a level of hardness, but it is hard when you start out and you don't kind of know where you're headed and you don't understand what the next step is.
And so how did your whole family react to your growth over the years?
I think that they're proud. My children want to be designers, so they love to come in and like fiddle around on Canva, and they love like they're very interested in clip art as well, which is amazing. My husband Glenn is very supportive. I remember when I first started my Etsy store, he surprised me with a giant canvas print of just the logo for my Etsy store and put it on the wall, and I was just like, wow, like I don't think he knows what I'm doing. I don't think he has like much of an idea of he's what I'm actually doing, but he knows it's important to me. So obviously, then he didn't know. Now he's a massive part of the business. But yeah, they've always been supportive and always cheered me on.
And any friends or families, did you see like massive changes, or I guess where the question is going at is a lot of us experience that we kind of outgrow certain circles over time. Was that ever something that happened to you, or were you able to keep things basically running parallel?
It's a really great question. The answer is I've basically employed all my friends, so they now work with me. I think, yeah, I've run out. I've just done the last one. So yeah. I'm still I love my team and they are all my friends as well. And I've been very, very lucky that I guess I've had friends who are interested in business and design as well. So
Are there other ways in which you're able to provide for others now that you have grown such a big membership, Etsy business, and monthly income?
I think, yeah, it's just being able to be home with the kids. Like both my husband and I, we're home, we're secure. Um, just being able to be like, okay, like you guys can stay home from school, like we'll just have a family day, or being like we can come pick you up in the middle of the day. We don't have to sort of ring around and juggle things with work. For me, family is probably the biggest reason that I want to be self-employed. So yeah, I'm so grateful for it.
Beautiful. If you were to lose everything tomorrow, how quickly do you think you would be to at a point of full-time income again, and then at a point of maybe 10K a month again?
I would go back to selling Etsy banners on Etsy. Will be the first thing I do. I don't want to like touch wood because I mean I don't want to lose everything tomorrow. But I mean I would love the challenge. I think I'd be able to pick it back up pretty quickly. Yeah, there's so many different things that you can do these days as well.
So you would make a new store and then let's go.
New store, let's go. Build up to what I think I would just build the same business if I could. Like I love my business. I love everything the way that it is, and I would just aim to be back to where I am at the moment because, I mean, yeah.
And in those first 3 months, would you build multiple stores, or would you just want to fill one store up as much as you can?
So I always tell my students 120 days is sort of how long you should focus on an Etsy store at a minimum because that's the full renewal cycle for a listing on Etsy. So it starts to renew after that and it kind of takes off a little bit of the pressure of having to upload daily. So yeah, I would hit the one Etsy store really, really hard.
That's so cool. And that's I know that there's so much that goes into it, but that's a pretty clear path on what your first 3 months in your membership should look like as well. So absolutely love that. Any advice you'd give the person who's listening right now and starts from scratch and or wants to accelerate their personal growth journey? Please feel free to brain dump everything that you would personally find is really helpful.
I think the best advice that I could give is just to take little steps, even when you're feeling really overwhelmed. If you have a plan, you've just got to follow it and see it through, even if they're tiny little steps. And I used to get really frustrated. Like when I first started my Etsy store, for the very first time, I had a newborn in one arm and I had my mouse in the other. And it was very, very, very slow going. I was just like making products very slowly, very frustrating. So just doing that so slowly and sort of still seeing it build to something, I think that that's such a testament to the consistency of showing up every single day, even if it's just in a small way. So I would say definitely just take those little steps every single day, eye on the prize. And I mean, you'll get there eventually. You have to if you keep moving.
What's your old number one consistency hack? How do you get yourself to be so consistent?
Just do it anyway. You just show up and you just do it anyway. You get those feelings and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, or I feel overwhelmed, or I don't know what my next step is. If you feel that way, usually it means that the task in front of you is too big. So you need to sit down, break it into smaller chunks, then grab a chunk and just do it.
How do you break down any task? Like how do you approach that typically?
Well, I'll sort of, if I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I'll take out a blank Google Doc and I'll like sort of write down every step in the process and I'll keep breaking it down. If it still feels overwhelming, because it's usually in your tummy, isn't it? When you feel like something's overwhelming. If you still have that feeling, just means like you need to break it down more. So I'll break it down to the point where I can see myself actually grabbing that task and doing it without overwhelm. And that is, I think, the thing that saved me in some of my most overwhelmed moments. So
Oh, that's such a helpful tip. Um, Beautiful. And I think you also are the master of this. I recently watched a training from you where you created a production plan for a wall art shop. And I could really see, like, okay, this is how you approach breaking things down. So I felt that was really, really insightful. And I learned one or two things from how you approach breaking things down. That was very helpful. Jessa, thank
Aw.
you so much for your time. Where can people find you that want to learn more about you, about creating and selling digital products on Etsy?
Well, I have probably the two best places are my YouTube and Instagram. So I put out weekly YouTube videos on the platform, and there's over 200 free videos out there at the moment. Or if you are a fan of Instagram, we put out posts every single day. We do training posts on Thursdays. We've got freebie Fridays. It's like a big party on Instagram. So, I mean, I would love to see you there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're incredible. Thank you.
I hope you found this conversation helpful. I will make sure to link Jessa's memberships below in the description box. This is where you'll also find my niche training. If you want to find or sharpen the niche for your personal growth journey, then I think you'll find this tremendously helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I see you in the next episode.